one of the things that, like, if it's in a public place, one of the things I tell my parents is maybe go and visit it,
Yeah.
go a little bit early and, visit it. Maybe bring a friend sometimes. If you have like a little neighbor or another classmate, sometimes that helps. So here's what I would ask a question of that I think I see sometimes is like, I love the idea of, your safe place, but what happens when children use that too much? And that it's more of, you have to be a little like, I mean, they're reacting emotionally, they're reacting
Mm.
physiologically, like you said, this isn't like a 7-year-old we're talking about. So I want our listeners to understand.
Yeah.
So we're giving them the permission, but what happens when you notice that the kid is doing it so much that it's not even about their uncomfortableness. It's more of a habit. And sometimes I find parents go too far with that, where the child is okay. So it's really important. Don't you agree that
Hmm.
parents are aware of what their child needs? And
Oh,
so
yes.
you got to be very aware and meet them where they're at, but not so far. You can't be too far back where, when I say too far back, like you're jumping in and saving them all the time.
Right.
You can't be too far ahead where you're go do it, go do it, go do it.
Yeah.
You've got to meet them where they're at. And so
So,
that's what you're doing. You're meeting her knowing that she tantrums all the time.
right. Well, so this is really, I'm so glad you asked that question because in my collaborative discipline model, there's 4 C's, but we have really keyed in on the first one,
Oh
which
my
is
God, I have
connection.
C's too. I have C's too. We're confusing everybody.
Oh, no,
Go
no.
into
Okay.
your C's. Go into your C's.
Sure. So we've keyed in on the connection part.
Yeah.
Okay. Connection, 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 because that's where
Connection,
trust,
connection, comfort, connection.
all of it, that's where
Yeah.
the trust is built.
Yes.
And
Yes.
communication,
My
right? I've
God, we
talked
should be
about
working together every day.
every day. I've talked about the words that are coming out of my mouth, which are the communication. So connect, communicate. Now, for those kids that you just described who are like, oh, I like it. Hey, I like hanging over here in the connection mode.
Yeah.
I don't want somebody to challenge me to go outside of my comfort zone because it's too hard. So I'll just hang here. Once you know that's where they're at, it's time to keep going. And to do that, you need to collaborate, which means some of their ideas, some of their opinions, some of their feelings matched with a little bit of what you need, a little bit of what they need to get them to the next step. And then we compromise. And this is what I find really powerful with toddlers. When you are willing to entertain a compromise with them. And for this little girl, it might be, I know you love jumping on trampolines. You jump on your trampoline at home all the time. That is the biggest trampoline I've ever seen. How about I jump on it, you jump on it, we jump on it together, then we invite your friend to jump with us. That might be the compromise that gets her in motion to go do it. But when we allow kids to feel part of the plan, is when they start to feel like they can start to make their own plans, even when they're in a slightly uncomfortable predicament. So if you know your kid is really using and abusing that love space, and you know that they love you and they trust you and they respect you and they're ready for that next step, then we've got to encourage them to go there. Maybe
I,
we go to.
I was thinking about because I'm always about arrive early, go visit the place, arrive early, go with a friend. Those are my 3 things. But what I was thinking when you brought up the trampoline is getting out of the car, and I know there's trampolines here. We
Yeah.
went, we looked online at the place because that's another thing. Go online, like really let them see the place because that gives them the control. And hey, let's just practice jumping as we're walking in. And maybe distraction and talking, like I love that you were talking about like grab my leg when you're not feeling safe. You got to keep guiding them though, because
Yes.
otherwise they
Yeah.
may sit on in that learn, because we got to balance with the learn helplessness. We
Yeah.
have a lot of kids, Cara, that families where we're really dealing with learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
And here's an example. I work with a child, let's say this was years and years ago, and it's an example. Family comes to the center. The child separated. She loved butterflies. So we were drawing, and she became verbal through the visual, the tactile, the choice questions, the
Yep.
avoiding the eye contact. We started out with some gentle sounds, and she knew her colors and she loved her butterflies. she was fully verbal to the point where she was not just verbal, she was engaging and she was jumping, and I put music on. She walks out of the room with me. I was like, this is great. Not even about the talking, just how like comfortable she was. And she sees her mother, Cara, and she breaks down in tears, runs over to her
Yes.
like she was just through torture. And this was really early on in my career. And I remember going, what? She just had but when she sees mom,
Yeah.
mom was an over coddler, and
Yeah.
we over coddler to her toddler. And so we have to be careful, because what happened is when she's with her mom, she's helpless.
Right.
And so as soon as she saw mom, she went into a helpless mode. And that was such a lesson for me back when, a million years ago, so to speak, because I was like, whoa, I need to look, listen, and learn and see what might be going on with this parent child dynamic, that I need to really support mom. And what you're
Yes.
saying is you give them the safety, but then you got to keep on moving, so you show them they can do things.
Yes, we need them to have that growth mindset. And what I
Yes.
really want your listeners to hear is this is a continuum.
Yeah.
Okay, a continuum. There was a day with a little girl, she was about 2 at the time, where her mom and dad were not going to be home in time to pick her up from childcare. And they asked me to be the go between. I have a very strong relationship with this little girl. And I'll shorten the story because I just want to get to the point of it. But she went back and forth about 6 different times. I have a whole podcast episode about it, actually, between tears, shuddering tears, looking out the window, mommy, daddy not here, mommy, daddy not here. And then moving into, and I would say to her, it's your choice to be sad. If you feel like being sad, you can cry. It's your choice to have fun. If you feel like having fun, let me know. And then she would say, choose fun. And she'd run to Play-Doh and we would have some fun. And then she would remember that they still weren't there. And she'd go back to the window and cry again. And then she would choose to do bubbles and have some fun. The vacillation between those 2 states of being were important for me to let her have, because they don't just go from upset to fine and stay there. We can't expect that.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. And you're validating. Much of what I hear that you do with kids is you are validating them. You're
Yes,
providing and you're giving them that, like, by validating them and you're respecting them. And the
yeah,
children develop confidence from that
they do.
and independence from that.
All
So
of
the more,
those things.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what's happening, because we're trusting them. And as a result of that, they're willing to let go, because when they don't feel that they're doing good enough, or where they're disappointing us, is when they hold on tight,
Yeah,
they don't let go, and they become more anxious, more avoidant, less confident, less independent.
absolutely.
That could be a
Yeah.
big quote there. That could be a multiple blogs. I'm a huge blog writer. So are you.
Yeah,
And I love writing my blog. So I encourage our listeners going to your website. What's your website again? Tell everybody.
it is core4parenting.com.
Yep. And you
Yeah,
have a book coming out, or
I
will be out by the time some listeners are
I
listening.
do.
Talk
I
to us
do.
about
I
that.
am so excited about my book. It's called Talk to Them Early and Often, and it is for all caregivers of kids between birth and 3. And it is available for pre-order now. It will be out in April. So if you're listening to this after April 24th, you could get it much quicker to your doorstep.
2026. Yeah,
2026.
because somebody may listen to this in a year.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this book is the culmination of the science of early language development in the brain and 25 intentional language strategies to use with
Well, I can't
kids.
wait to read this. I mean, I'm a new grandmother.
Ooh.
My first grandchild, she is 7 weeks today. And yes. And it's interesting because my kid's dad, like, he developed this whole videos of them when they were little. And we were watching it yesterday, and I've been watching videos of them when they were
Mm.
younger. And one of the things I did really early on was sing to them and
Mhm.
talk to them. And I can tell you, my kids were early talkers, and I think it has something to do with it. I was always singing, always dancing with them, but I was always talking to them on the changing table, having
Mhm.
conversations, and watching them respond and giving them that time to cue. So, give us a couple like tidbits from your book.
Sure. Yeah, so in that case, one of the things that I would say is tell me more. Every time a baby coos back, tell me more. Parentese is the scientific term for the voice that we use when we talk to young kids because it's not the same
No.
at all, right? It completely changes. Please don't fight that. That is developmentally appropriate. And so people call it baby talk, but I would challenge you to think about it differently. Think about parentese as the voice you're using, but pair it with actual full sentences, just like Dr. E did. And that's going to have the most impact. And tell me more every time the baby coos back, every time the infant giggles. Tell me more is going to turn on that cognitive brain and say, oh, I am somebody who has information to share with my adult. And what it does is it strengthens what we call the serve and return experience. And that is the beginning of practicing conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it because I'm coming back. Like my youngest are turning 30. And I'm coming back to when my kids were babies. So watching those videos that back then was way before I knew Sophie had selective mutism,
Mm.
but she's the one that has this baby. So, and her husband was very timid. So Sophie told me when she got pregnant, she's like, Mom, between you and Jenna, Dr. Jenna works at the Smart Center, as many of our listeners know. I need you and Jenna to be sure
Mm.
that we work on engagement really early because she's genetically very prone to this. So the handing, the
Oh.
taking, we're going to work on, but the language and the socializing, and we're going to do it at her pace, but we're going to definitely help her because she's very prone. And it's interesting because the other night was the first time she took her out really to like a gathering, first time.
Mhm.
And she was so overwhelmed, Cara. She cried
Mm.
the entire time because she's a little baby. It was my brother's 60th and my mother's 85th
Right.
birthday. And she brought her, they kept her on the side. They got there early. They did all the stuff, but she's an infant
Right.
and she'd never been out. She will eventually need to be socialized in a way that helps her do it in a
Yeah.
productive way. You can't do that with a baby. She's a baby. But I think the sounds, even when she was
Yeah.
cuddled with her mom and in her stroller with the top over, was a
Mm.
lot, even though it was only our like 20 people family.
Right. Right.
But the
That
smells
helps
are
me with
new.
my this helps me with my second tip 100%.
Go
So,
ahead.
crying is communicating. And I feel like parents believe me when I say that when their child is 9 months or more. But under that, when they're still an infant or a baby, they feel like they're either a good baby or not, right? Babies who cry a lot, oh, this is a challenging child. Babies who are just naturally happy in all situations. Oh, what a good baby. Please, please, please move away from that line of thinking and just know that crying is communicating. And so your beautiful grandbaby was communicating that this sensory experience was not matching up with what she needed.
And crying isn't always a sense of pain. A lot of new
No.
parents think, oh my God, I got to save her. She's crying. Well, you don't want her wailing, but some of the noise is just her way of like communicating, but managing herself in that situation. But they don't have
Yes.
the ability to do it on their own yet. So we do have to help them. It's very different
Yes.
now. There's so many new laws, so many new parenting ways that are so different than when my kids were little.
There are, but I just feel like we just need to go back to basics, right? Before we knew all the things we knew, the most intuitive cultures were the most successful in parenting because they prioritized connection. They really paid attention to their children in all ways. And so they knew all those cues, but they also knew how to connect deeply with that attention. And then they knew what their natural skills were because of that. And they knew what their natural struggles were because of that. And they didn't do it in a bubble. right?
Yeah.
This isolated silo parenting that we've got now is really challenging. But when we allow that entire tribe we were talking about earlier to be part of the experience, this child can really thrive.
No, for sure. This was wonderful. I mean, we talked about so many different things and probably opening eyes to so many different aspects to parenting, communication, understanding dysregulation. There's so much. So
Mhm.
thank you, thank you. Anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to share about? Well, you talked about your book, your
Yeah.
website. Any last minute tips to these parents?
Well, I just want to cheer for all of you. I really do. As Dr. E just alluded to, parenting right now during this time period in history is the most challenging time to be doing it. There is, you're just overwhelmed with too much. And I challenge you to just go back to your inner core and ask yourself, why did I decide to be a parent? What was I looking forward to? What experience did I want to have with my child? I teach how to write a personalized parenting mission statement. And so if you
Hmm.
hop over to my Instagram, there's a link there for you to do that. Really understand your vision for why you are in this relationship with your child and who it is that you want to raise, because you're raising an adult right now. They're tiny, they're in the middle, they're on their way. I don't know how old your kids are, but ultimately, your goal is to raise a strong, confident adult who can be independent and also be a really good communicator and socializer. So, if that's your goal, then you get to drive this bus and don't let the rest of the world tell you.